front of an empty classroom now. I get kind of this deal. So I'm going to go through 24.1. We're going to talk about Richard Nixon today, the only president to ever have to resign from office. And we'll talk about specifics of that. It's really kind of interesting because it's just crazy that the timing of it is last week. It came out that if you go into the Obamagate news hit the rounds last week. I'll talk what that means. Basically, there's this accusation that Barack Obama had basically wiretapped Donald Trump's political campaign in 2016. You can't do that. It's illegal. We'll get into more details about that. Kind of the same thing Nixon did. Nixon had to resign. So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. And I'm going to shoot over to 24.1. Okay, waiting for it to present. Okay, all right. Can everybody see that? Can somebody come over and say you can see the screen or not see the screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I can see it.
Cool. All right, so
I can't see it on the phone.
Oh, well, do you have it kind of written out already?
Yeah.
Okay, then just try to follow. I'll try to be as specific as I can. We'll go through. So for 24.1, we're going to go over Richard Nixon's presidency. And the first thing we're going to talk about is his background. So he was brought up during the Great Depression. That's the first blank you want to put in there. He's brought up during the Great Depression. He worked his way through college and eventually graduated law school. He was like, after the slide's done, you're going to know, like, he worked his butt off. He did a lot of things that kind of worked his way up. At the second bullet point there, so he went through the Great Depression. He worked his way through law school and college. He served in World War II. After that, he serves in the Congress. So he has this litany of background that he was really kind of geared to become the next president of the United States. And in 1960, he loses the presidency to JFK. Okay, John F. Kennedy. We talked about that. There was one reason why he lost to JFK. We talked about it a couple chapters ago, and that's because of the TV debate. Remember, we talked about Nixon came across as, looking like an ogre versus JFK looked young. He wouldn't put on makeup. JFK would. JFK was tan. Nixon was not. So we talked a good bit about that. So in 1960, he loses the presidency to John F. Kennedy. In 1968, he makes his comeback. We talked about Lyndon Baines Johnson. Lyndon Baines Johnson doesn't run for re-election. LBJ does not run for re-election. RFK, John F. Kennedy's brother, was assassinated, and he was going to be like the next, probably the next president. And then Nixon's able to defeat the Democrat nominee Humphrey. Okay, does anybody need to speak up? I need to fill in any of the blanks that you didn't catch any right there.
And served in.
He served in World War II. After he serves in the Congress. After World War II, he serves in the Congress.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I'll check. Okay. All right. So we can just from that slide, you can basically look at the things that he did leading up to becoming president. Like he was more. He was more accomplished than any other president than you've ever probably seen since you've been little. Donald Trump, did he have any kind of political background before becoming president of the United States? No, he's a businessman. Barack Obama never served a full term of anything. He served a half term as a state senator and a half term as a congressman. That's it. He never served one full term. He didn't have any background at all either. George W. Bush had some, but not as much as what Nixon did. And Nixon, again, is the only president to resign from office. 3 have been impeached now. Okay. Anybody know the 3? Andrew Johnson's been impeached. Anybody know the other 2? One was recent. One's the president right now. Okay.
Wasn't Nixon and Donald Trump also impeached?
Nixon resigned. Donald Trump was impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached. Right, and all 3 impeachments were just they really, none of them should have been impeached. Maybe Clinton, he did lie under oath, but it was really kind of Andrew Johnson was a sham. Bill Clinton, it really shouldn't have got to that point, and then Donald Trump, and so none of those were removed from office. Nixon removed himself from office eventually, but we'll get to that Okay. So can y'all see the screen? Somebody say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We could see it.
All right, so Nixon, how does he win? How does he win 1960? He loses in 1960. How does he win 1968? Well, he reaches out to what we call the silent majority. And what we define as a silent majority are non-shouters, non-demonstrators, what we call middle America. See, most of the time, people who go out protesting, screaming, and yelling are really loud and obnoxious. That's usually not the majority of people. Most people don't have time to go protest. Most people don't have time to get into it with other people and be loud and obnoxious because they're working or they have jobs. And so he reached out to those people. This is the middle of the 1960s when everybody's protesting, everybody's screaming, yelling, being very obnoxious. Sounds a lot like today, by the way. You know, it's kind of like when you go online, you only see the most loudest people talk. Most of the time, like there's always some kind of middle ground. So non-shouters, non-demonstrators, middle America, that's what he dubbed the silent majority. That will be a test item, okay? These people were tired of LBJ's Great Society program, okay, which, you know, we talked about was to try to help society, actually really kind of hurt society. He created a new thing called New Federalism, where Washington gives power back to the states, okay? Washington, D.C. gives power back to the states. Okay, and they did this through what we call revenue sharing. That will also be on the test through revenue sharing. States now control social programs. Okay, so this is what that's what new federalism was. That will be on the test. Specifically, the revenue sharing part will be on the test.
Could you repeat what people were tired of LBJ and the state's control?
Yeah, so people were tired of LBJ's Great Society.
Okay.
Remember we talked about that program that's trying to, you know, end poverty and all those things. Actually did none of that. And then through revenue sharing, REVENUE, revenue sharing.
Okay, but what's the final bullet point, or is that the final bullet point?
It goes through revenue. States now control. I'm sorry, did I do that? States now control social programs.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you repeat the first bulletin for the new federalism?
Under new federalism, Washington gives power back to the states. So this idea of federalism or localism is what people are calling it today. Like, for example, today, Florida has reopened is starting to reopen business and its economy. Not all states have done that. And what Donald Trump has done under this COVID crisis is he's given the power to the states, counties, cities. Y'all figure out, they figure out how they're going to kind of open things back up. And through that, again, you have more freedom, you have more power when the power is localized because you know people locally. You don't know people in Washington, D.C. that are making these decisions. So I feel like it's a really good thing. Now, it does suck. If you live in Los Angeles, they are going to continue to lock down for the next 3 months. That sucks. That's terrible for them. And I feel really awful for them. But guess what? You know, people have a choice. Do you have to live in Los Angeles? And what do you think is going to happen now after this? Are people going to live in Los Angeles after this? Probably not. They are going to move. They're going to move to places like Florida and like Texas. They're going to move out because it's gotten that kind of crazy there. So that's the idea behind freedom and federalism and localism is let people decide for themselves how they want to do things. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and go on to the next one. All right. Can y'all see that Nixon grows big government?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So Nixon called himself a conservative, called himself small government, and he did things that did help out small government. And we just said revenue sharing. But on the other end of it, he also grew big government. He created OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Okay. This put regulations on businesses. Some of you might have worked like Winn-Dixie or like McDonald's. Have y'all seen signs or big posters that says OSHA on them? Anybody?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's part of that. That's your workers' compensation stuff. Okay, and we talked about the EPA already before, the Environmental Protection Agency. I'll just write that out right there. Environmental Protection Agency. That's where the federal government enforces environmental standards. on businesses. He also created the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, or Administration, I think is agency. Always get it mixed up. And this starts the federal government's war on drugs. The DEA, the the Drug Enforcement Agency, sorry. And then last, he created FAP, Family Assistance Plan. The federal government provides families with a minimum income. Anybody miss anything that I need to cover?
What was the federal
Can you
government's
repeat
war?
the EPA?
Yeah, I'll do EPA, and then okay. So EPA is Environmental Protection Agency. The federal government enforces environmental standards. For the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the federal government's war on drugs.
Coach.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Oh no.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Brittany Boyd said that she can't make it because her computer's updating.
Well, how dare her? That's fine. Thank you for letting me know.
Coach Hill,
Yes.
is it okay if I go? I have to go into work.
No, you can't go make money. Who's that? Who just said that?
Kristen,
Yeah,
Applegate.
that's fine, Kristen. Just come back. I'll try to post this tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, all right. A couple things we need to talk about next with the economy. So we're not in any kind of oil shortage right now. We are actually, Trump actually did something really smart when this whole COVID thing, he bought a lot of oil, but we weren't in that same shape back in 1973. We are actually running out of oil. In fact, y'all can see the screen, right? No?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So back in the day, what would happen is you would have to. There was such a gas shortage; you could only get so many gallons per day. And what was really kind of common, that's a gas station back in 1973. What the government did is they said, all right, prices are getting out of control. So they put a cap on prices, on gas prices. And when that happened, basically people started hoarding gas, and when they couldn't find gas, they would they would siphon out gasoline out of cars and like park driveways at night. And I don't know if anybody's ever had
Yeah.
you've ever had to siphon something before. Basically, you take a hose and you put the other hose in the gas tank, and you basically blow into it and it suck out the gas, and you take in a little gas in your mouth. And then you basically put it into your car, and they would jack people's gasoline that way. And that's because they put gas. That's because they put prices. They basically try to make sure gas prices weren't getting so high, and that led to the gas shortage of 1973. We're not going to have that now. In fact, gas prices are like lower than when I was in high school. It's crazy how low they've gone. It's now they're almost to a level. I remember growing up, they were like, I remember when it was like 89, 99 cents, and when it was a big deal when it got over $1. And we're slowly going down now. I think it's like around $1.65 now. So it's really kind of crazy how things kind of go. Okay, so let's get to the economic problems of the 1970s. Okay, so a couple terms you need to know is stagflation. Okay, stagflation is defined as where inflation and a recession occur at the same time. Now, guys, we're in a depression, an economic depression right now. We have the same unemployment as it was in the 1930s. So it's really kind of like scary what's going to happen next. This won't be felt, I don't think, for like maybe a year, maybe a little bit less than a year. But there's a lot of people that are unemployed, and it's just really kind of scary. So anyway, so stagflation. Get back to this. Stagflation is where you have inflation and recession occurring at the same time, where your buying power isn't the same. That's inflation, where basically it's costing you so much money to buy a whole lot of stuff. And then a recession is where you have 2/4 of a loss in the gross domestic product, which means you're not making a whole lot of stuff. There's a couple reasons why that happened in the 1970s. Okay. One, we were spending a lot of money in the Vietnam War. Okay. Two, because of increased foreign competition. Okay. Three, the increase of oil prices. OPEC, which you need to write this down, stands for the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. Now, the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries is made up of all the Arab countries in the Middle East. And because they control most of the world's oil, they used to. They don't really anymore. They still do, but we're really competitive with them now. Because they control most of it, and because they, most countries over there don't like what we've done around the world, they get to set and to control prices. Okay, so I'll say it one more time. It's really the only thing you really have to fill in here. OPEC stands for the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, the Arab countries. Okay, I would make sure you know what stagflation is. It's a combination of an inflation and a recession. Both, all that will be on the test. Anybody missing anything? There's only really one thing you had to write in there. Good. Okay. So it will be kind of interesting to see what's going to happen with all this. Can we make a comeback? I think some states can. I don't think it'll be a nationwide comeback because about 26 states are still locked down, 24 are opening. So we'll see what happens and how we kind of jumble things around. Okay. So that was still another picture of the gas shortage in 1973, the oil crisis, how oil prices went up in the late 1970s. It came back down during the 80s. Nixon wins in a landslide. If you look at this map right here, okay, in 1968 he wins, in 1972 he wins. He wins in a landslide. And this is really important to check this out, okay, because Nixon has to resign because his people were trying to find information on the next campaign. They were going to win anyways, but he was so paranoid that he was going to lose re-election. He basically sends his he does I don't know if there's evidence that he actually sent him, but a group of Secret Service people broke into the Watergate Hotel and stole information from the Democrat National Convention to see what they were going to run against Richard Nixon. Okay, some of you might have heard of Watergate before, or at least like you're all in the know with like pop culture. Anytime there's a scandal, it always has the word "gate" on the end of it, right? Like last week, Obamagate. Years ago, Tom Brady deflated the footballs in the AFC National Championship. They called that Deflategate. So it's kind of like it's almost become a kind of pop culture thing where like you just put the word "gate," that means that there's a scandal going on. Okay, so Nixon's re-election. Okay. We'll get to Watergate. He gets votes from blue-collar whites because he places a moratorium on forced busing. Okay, so basically, white people in the suburbs were getting upset, and the rural areas were getting upset that basically, if y'all don't remember the 1960s, how they try to force desegregation is they would send white kids to black schools and black kids to white schools. Well, obviously, you probably already know what's going to happen with that. A lot of bullying. If you're that minority group of kids, they wouldn't do it like half and half. It was, say in all white school, and 5 black kids would go to the white school, they would get bullied, they'd get beat up. Okay, and vice versa the other way. So blue collar whites were really happy that he places a moratorium, which means he ends forced busing. He also gets votes from minorities and women because of his Philadelphia plan. Okay. Can you hold on? Can you give me 1 second, baby? All right, give me 1 second, okay? I'll be there in like 5 minutes, okay? Go on. Okay. So he gets votes from women and from minorities because of his Philadelphia plan. Make sure you know the Philadelphia plan. What this does is it pushes affirmative action onto American businesses. Okay. You would get more consideration if you're a woman or if you're a minority for jobs over white males. So not only blue collar whites are voting because he placed a moratorium on forced busing, he also gets votes because of from women and from minorities because of affirmative action. So and let's talk about affirmative action to a degree. I've always been about the best person for the job. That's always been like my personal kind of like bias to affirmative action. I think if one person scores a better score than another person, that person should get in. But what they've done to try to basically try to break down, try to bring in more minorities into certain areas, they've relaxed some of the restrictions. So, like for example, there's a old case study of like for the fire departments, right? Fire departments, especially in the Northeast, are predominantly made up of white Irish males and white, Italian males. And so what they did is they basically said for women, they don't have to pass the same physical restraints as males do, as the white Irish males or the white Italian males. And then they also did that for blacks and for Hispanics, is they also relaxed some of the restrictions as well. I don't agree with that because I think that like you're basically handicapping people. I think that you're basically saying they can't do that, which I think people can. I think there's women, and I think there's every single minority group can do whatever. Like everybody's an individual. We don't have to like say because you're this skin color, you have to do this. There's a big lawsuit right now onto University of Harvard. If you want to get into University of Harvard and you're of Asian descent, you say you have to score. What's the highest score you get on the SAT? 1600, right? Anybody know? It used to be 1600 when I was in school. No, that's not true, Sean. Not a 4. Let's say it's 1600. So if you're Asian, you have to get like basically to get into Harvard, you have to get some about like say 1200 or 1300 on the SAT. Okay. And as you get down the scale, like they make it harder on Asians because they're making up such a big part of the population at Harvard. So no, guys, if you're looking at the messages to the side, don't go by that. Sean is wrong. All right. Anyways, anybody need me to fill in Nixon's reelection? Anything? Any of those blank ones?
Yes. What pushes affirmative action onto American
businesses?
Businesses. Okay. Thank you.
Somebody else?
What is more consideration to women and minorities for jobs over
white males?
Okay.
Yeah. We good? Okay. All right. Just a couple slides left. So we already talked about Watergate. But present this. That was the Watergate Hotel. That's why they call it Watergate. It was at the Watergate Hotel. Nixon resigns and Ford has to take over. So as we like start to break down what happens with Nixon, Watergate, he basically, the Secret Service people go into Watergate and they just steal documents and they look at how the Democrats are going to run against them in 1972, and then they break down like the White House. This all the blue dots are all the different bugs, the recording devices in the White House to record people that came in to Nixon when they had an interview with Nixon. And he had a famous line, "I am not a crook." And here's him editing one of the accusations, he was editing some of the audio tapes that he had recorded in the White House. So it was really kind of a big shock for everybody. So, all right, so here we go, Watergate. Republicans break into the Democrats' headquarters, okay? Nixon didn't order the break-in, but once the investigation began, he attempts to cover it up. And that becomes, the cover-up is worse than the actual, like, deal, So had he just turned in the people that did do the break-in, nothing would probably happen to him. Nixon secretly records every conversation in the White House. When asked for them, tapes that were either missing or had blank time periods on them. Okay, before being impeached and then removed from office, Nixon resigns. So that was kind of his way of getting out. And here's Nixon, the last day of his presidency. Anybody have any blanks you want to fill that need to be filled in there?
I do. The first bullet point.
Yeah, Republicans break into the Democrats' headquarters.
Okay. And then Nixon secretly records I didn't
Yeah.
get that one.
Secretly records every conversation in the White House.
Okay, thank you.
So, one of the big questions that's going to come up, I think, in the next couple weeks, maybe, I don't know, but if it comes out that basically President Obama ordered the investigation into Trump in 2016 when he became president, where his phones were wiretapped. That is a really big breach of power, and it's really equivalent to Richard Nixon. Now, obviously, he can't be impeached or resign. He's already done. So I don't even know what you would do. What would be the consequences of that now? But it is really kind of scary. So, okay. If anybody at this point in time, guys, that lesson's over. What we're going to do tomorrow, I'll post the video. Wednesday, I'll cover 23.2. Make sure you do the worksheet and read over the worksheet, do the questions on the worksheet, because I'm not going to do that. You're going to have to do that on your own. You're going to get tested on that. So make sure you take a look at that. I'll post the study items Wednesday night. You'll take the test Thursday. We'll get on here again at 12, and we'll take the test. You need to Google Meet with me in order to take the test. Some of you still need to make up Chapter 23 tests. Stay on until we're all done here. At this point in time, if you don't have anything you need me to cover, like your work or your tests, you can get off, and I'll check you out later, guys, okay?
I do have a question, Coach.
What's up?
So I know that there's going to be like a drive-through sort of book drop-off thing at school. Are you going to have your notebook, our notebooks there?
When is that for y'all?
I believe it is on June 1st.
June 1st. To be honest, it all depends